It's a whole different kind of a way, it's a brush.
Yeah, you're right, it's a fresh, it's like a, it's cute, it's a,
But this is like a bush, see, like a brush. And this is done. Okay.
so these are for,
This is gorgeous.
these are this stunning, that's beautiful.
Go out there and look.
I will. Yes, ma'am. Are you writing? You're writing something,
What do you usually do?
Oh, I have to do a program for my, for the Roche Coders Group in March. I'm doing, Purim. And we're gonna read the story of Esther, but I don't know if it's in here. I just printed it all out. I printed it all out.
Do you really believe that it was?
Well, yeah, I do. Why not? Why wouldn't you believe it? What do you think he was?
Mr. and Mordecai?
Yeah, they were uncle,
It's
yeah.
like Bill Moss says in the fall, he said,
Isn't this what kind of,
Oh my God. So he called it, while I was sitting in the
Does not
office, he
have-
called two cardiologists, got this one.
No, it doesn't have
It was
any-
12:30, he
that's
said,
true.
going over there right now, he's gonna see you immediately at 1 o'clock. And man,
So
I was
we can
pushed through that office a minute.
I made a
The
copy.
sister in the rally, his name means a lot.
I was last year.
When Howard calls, it's like,
So that's
oh,
enough.
doctor.
I did print out a copy of the Megan McGill. Copies of it.
Say, really? No, that's not a good idea either.
Any place with kids who are.
Nice young man.
Oh, no, this is just a woman's school. This is just a woman's school.
They don't wanna stamp their feet and tuck their.
Yeah.
It's a knock. It's a knock.
Oh, my
You're having choice. Oh, you are?
Who are you representing?
I'm just reading a passage.
Are you guys members?
Who am I
You just
representing?
visit.
I'm on the social stuff. That's true. And I'm doing a reading. Alicia.
I'm Ronan.
Nice to meet you.
I'm membership.
Just Rhonda Barrett.
What's that?
Ever Rhonda Barrett?
Rona Barrett. Yeah.
That sounds so familiar.
It was a.
She have a gossip column?
Somebody wrote a column.
Yeah, she was columnist. Rhonda Barrett, yeah, she got.
Not your usual name either. She spelled it the way I spelled it.
Oh, does she?
Because a lot of people put an H in there.
Really? That's weird. No, but they spell names, they're all different today now. Shabbat Shalom, Peter?
Did you get your water?
How many people here tonight?
Oh, that's my business.
You've got.
I always check.
You need a phone. I put a whole bunch in my pocket. Because I know.
Hey, get my seat.
It's even worse when you cough all night and don't sleep. You're ready to go.
Me, I get the flu, I've been laid out for 3 weeks.
What happens to us now?
I know, whatever I've seen, he's sick.
They get you sick. How old are they?
We have 7 of them from 6 down to.
Oh, because it stops as they get older.
Kids get sick, I stay away.
7 of them is 6.
Because my grandsons are always getting sick
Well, it's
from
fun for
school.
cousins.
Well,
They'll all be about the same age. They do, they live near each other. Oh, wow.
Where do they go to school? St. Barbara?
Oh, wow.
the other 2 are the same class.
That's great.
I couldn't go skiing, I was supposed to go skiing.
Where we go skiing?
So mine.
I gave it up like 6, 7 years ago, it was going to Aspen, and the flight was awful, I got tired of the cold, and, hey, but it's better in Aspen than it is in Vermont. Well, this January, February, they're awful.
Last year we went to Florida.
You know, I walked out, I put a hat, a hood, and I wear ski gloves, walking around.
Absolutely. I got, my ski jacket.
Right.
Old underwear on, gloves.
Yeah. Next year we have to spend time away from here, it's not worth it.
We have to go Korea.
I don't know, maybe we'll
I'll
have to
go
go
to
to jail,
Mexico.
I don't know. You just have to get away, you need a break.
I don't know, I'm older than you.
No, you gotta get out. I mean, did you go to the gym?
Shabbat shalom.
See, I go to the gym and I swim, at least I get out, and then I force myself to walk.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. How are you? Good to see you.
So, this is our
New candles.
yes, big oil. Yes. Were they? Ruinstein's donated it last week. Some beautiful request from Nicole's mother, Lisa. We weren't quite sure what to do with them. So we decided this, and so far it worked really well.
I mean, they never go out.
Yeah, that's
Oil candles never go out.
well, so that's the interesting thing about it. Is that's something of a challenge because you're not really supposed to blow out candles, as it were. And,
Just don't tune in front of me.
yeah, that's I think basically that's what it comes.
Or get Josie to do it.
That's also
That's the other option, no?
often what happens. Often what happens.
Shabbat shalom. How are you? So good to see you.
Yeah, of course. And I'll put it just, actually, you know what, Andy, if it's helpful, these I believe have not been, yes, I believe, let me just make sure, yeah, this one's unopened. I'll just leave it right up here then. Perfect? Okay. Okay.
I would do it whenever you want. I have no strong feelings. We can skip it.
Maybe what we'll do
For
is,
expediency, we can skip whenever you want. We can even decide on if you want to
I think
skip
that's
something.
what I'm thinking, maybe that would probably be the only place for that.
You announce a page number, I'll do what's on that page, and then maybe even not that.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe even not that.
Maybe not that. We'll see.
da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da da. Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da da, ya da 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 da.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So as most of you know, if not all of you know, that this Shabbat we are joining together with a number of congregations all across the country in acknowledging Repro Shabbat, Reproductive Rights Shabbat, which brings together, again, congregations of a wide variety from different backgrounds, all focused and centered on this really core and essential aspect of certainly our contemporary existence, but our existence throughout time. And the Jewish approach to what in many cases has become one of the most significant conversations and right now battles in our space here in this country. And I'm very grateful at the outset, and I want to say to the leadership in our temple, in particular leadership of our Social Justice Committee, Andy Klausner, who is here tonight as one of our co-chairs, and I know they can't be with us tonight, but thinking also of Alyssa Peak and Jackie also Klein as being our leaders, and then many of you in the room who have either been directly involved in our Social Justice Committee or have found ways in being connected to it since its inception. And really thank you, Andy, for taking the lead and helping to bring this to our community and, of course, to our friends and partners at the National Council for Jewish Women as well. And, of course, you know, on any Shabbat like this, our focus is usually on that one subject, on that one topic. And, of course, tonight, it's hard not to be thinking also of Israel and what has transpired over the last few days there as well. And I think everybody coming into the room tonight is carrying a lot of very, very heavy emotions. And a lot of those emotions are ones that we can't always contain or find words for. And so in our tradition and in our community here, when we can't really find those words, this is exactly where we want to be. We want to be in community really with each other. And I'll just simply say that one of the hardest parts of what happened the last couple of days is you know, knowing exactly what to say and when to say it. And as I was just saying to Will, one of the things to remember when we get terrible news like we got, that we feel a kinship, we feel a connection, we feel like it's happened to us. And I can tell you that I just came to Temple having just watched my daughter perform, picking up my son from camp, holding his little hand. You know, it hits very hard when you realize, right, I have that gift of being able to do that tonight, and the Bibas family does not. And it's hard not to feel that personally. And yet at the same time, the one thing I would remind us is that while it does affect all of us, where we all feel very connected, that it is an individual family. These are people that deserve the first opportunity to remember their loved ones. And Shabbat in general is not when we eulogize. It's actually something that is generally prohibited. So we hold very much in our hearts the Bibas family, the Lifshitz family, the whole people of Israel, all of the hostages who remain. We hold them in our hearts every day, and we certainly do on this Shabbat. But we will also, again, find space to make sure that we have the important conversation that we intended to have tonight as well. And we're going to do that in a number of different ways, one of which is involving some of the leadership of the Social Justice Committee and participating in the service tonight. And not to give anything away, but Andy will share with us some words of really deep and profound wisdom and personal experience later in the sermon space as well. Last thing I want to say before I turn it over to one of those leaders to help to introduce our Reproductive Rights Shabbat this Shabbat is just to say that it's important to situate contemporary conversation in our tradition, in our text, in the ways in which our people have thought about these issues over time. And part of the choice of making sure that this Shabbat happens on Parshat Mishpatim is not accidental. It is a parsha in which not just specifically, but generally, we are talking about mishpat, about law, about the application, again, of how we direct society and how we understand, again, the values that underpin it. And some of the core text that lended itself to the conversation the rabbis have been having over the last 2,000 years comes from this week's parsha. And so we'll hear again in various places and various ways in which that ancient conversation weaves into our present conversation tonight. So with that, it's really my honor and privilege to welcome up one of our great leaders here, one of our dear friends in the Temple community, and a very, very dedicated member of our social justice committee, Leslie Hillel, who's going to read an introductory reading that is adapted from something that was provided to us by the National Council for Jewish Women. So Leslie, if you would please join us up here.
This weekend, we celebrate Repro Shabbat, in which we're partnering with the National Council of Jewish Women as a way of bringing the whole Jewish community together to talk about what our tradition teaches about reproductive health, rights, and justice. And when we study, we know reproductive freedom is a Jewish value. 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant will terminate a pregnancy by the age of 45. That includes members of our own community for their own deeply personal reasons. So many important stories in our community go untold. Our tradition not only permits the termination of pregnancy, but even requires it when the life of the pregnant person is at stake. And of course, human dignity, and more broadly, building a just society, are ultimate Jewish concerns. Our community should be places where everyone who is terminated or may ever terminate a pregnancy feels loved and welcomed. And our community should be places where everyone can feel welcome to share their reproductive health stories without fear of shame or stigma. If folks wish to share, let us be a community that welcomes sharing of personal journeys, whether that involves termination, fertility challenges, pregnancy loss, or any other experience. During a time when abortion access matters more than it ever has in many of our lifetimes, we here at Temple Adas Israel are committed to this work.
Now I'll invite up another one of our great leaders, Alicia Sullivan, who is going to offer a reading before we light and bless our Shabbat candles.
I don't walk in heels all the time. Our tradition teaches that creation's brightest light was hidden at the dawn of time. But on this Shabbat, a night of hope and joy, a glimmer of that light is here. In candles' flame and children's eyes aglow with wisdom's light. It shines in the faces of the ones we love, in grateful hearts, in tears of loss. It lives in memories of goodness and in our desire to do right, to try again, to build anew and make peace. We enter this Shabbat and look upon the beauty of these lights. May this Shabbat renew the light within us.
We're going to join together for the blessing on page 120. And Alicia, if you'd want to come over, and Leslie, would you mind coming back up to help us? Why don't you grab that piece of paper just so we have the blessing as well? Would you come up here? Lisa, you want to come down? Here. I'll do the... Again, we continue to light our 2 sets of candles, one for us here in Sag Harbor and one again for the hostages still held in bondage.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Asher kiddushanu v'mitzvaso v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
We'll turn now in our prayer books to begin Kabbalat Shabbat together on page 130.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu nekadma fanav betodah. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai.
We're now on page 131.
Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru miyom leyom Yeshuato, Safru vagoyim kevodo, Bechol ha'amim niflotav, Ki gadol Adonai, hulal meod, norahu, al kol Elohim, yai, shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru miyom leyom Yeshuato.
We'll turn now to page 132, or Zarua, toward the very bottom of the page.
Or zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik, uleishrei lev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho.
We'll turn now to page 134 at the very top.
Zamru l'Adonai bechinor, bechinor vekol zimra, b'chatzotzrot vekol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, yiram hayam umlo, tevel veyoshveva neharot, imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiranenu, lifnei Adonai kiva, lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel betzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim, yiram hayamum lo, tevel ve'yoshveva neharot, imcha uchaf yachad, harim yiranenu.
We're now on page 135, the last Hebrew paragraph just in the middle of the page.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho.
We'll turn to page 136 as we do the 29th Psalm, beginning at the very top of the page.
Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai kavod va'oz, Havul Adonai kevod shemo, Hishtachavul Adonai beharat kodesh, Kol Adonai amaim el hakavod hirim, Adonai al ma'im rabim, Adonai al ma'im rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel Levanon vesirion, kemo veneremim, kemo veneremim, Kol Adonai chotzev la'avotesh, Kol Adonai yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot, Vayechesof ye'arot, Uvechalo kulo merkavod, kulo merkavod, kulo merkavod, Adonai lamabul yashav, Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
We'll turn now to L'chad Odi on page 138. Reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, and for the final paragraph, we'll rise and face the door as we walked through just a few moments ago.
L'chad Odi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmianu, El hameyuchad Adonai echad, U'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet, ve'litila l'echad Odi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha ki mekor, haberacha merosh bikedem, nesucha sof maaseh, v'machshava tchila, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, hitoreri kiva orech, kumi uri shir daberi kevod Adonai, alaich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, boi v'shalom, Ateret bala gam besimcha, uvetzolato chemune am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
We'll turn now to page 140. Again, page 140, where it indents in the Hebrew.
Tzadikata marifrach keres balvanon iske shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu hodienu uvun beseva deshenim verananim ihiu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo.
Now rise again in body or spirit as we turn to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and we'll remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal vehitkada shemei rabba
Amen.
Yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala ba'gala uvizman kariv v'yimeru Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach La'olam li'almei amaya yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudsha b'richu Leila min kol bechata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma v'yimeru
Amen.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. We'll turn now to page 149, and we'll read together in English the second reading down from the top of the page. Again on page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Havir yom umevi laila, mavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzevaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ari v'aravi.
Amen. We'll turn now to page 151, and we'll read together in English toward the top of the page. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, v'hem nege yomam v'layla, ve'avetechal tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join us on page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha v'chol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'eleh אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על אוהביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם.
Emet. Let's read together on the bottom, or responsively, I should say, on the bottom of page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many, and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Mi Chamocha is on page 158.
Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, norati lo osefele, malchutcha ra'u vanecha, bokeyam lifnei Moshe, malchutcha ra'u vanecha, bokeyam lifnei Miriam, zezeli anu ve'ameru Adonai imloch leolam leolam va'ed mi chamocha bailim Adonai mi kamocha nedar bakodesh norati lo osefele v'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu is on the top of page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Baruch ata Adonai ha'porei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. We turn now to page 162, Veshamer at the very top of the page.
Veshameru v'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש.
Invite us now to rise in body or in spirit as we prepare to offer the Amidah. First together, beginning on page 164, and then continue silently. Before we begin, I just want to share a small iyun, a small focused prayer on page 165. And it says, prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. We begin together on page 164 and then continue silent.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi ani teilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu,
As we turn to page 371 to offer our healing Misha Berach this evening, I want to invite all of us to take a moment of silence to think of the loved ones that are most directly connected to you that you might be praying for tonight, those in our community that we are thinking of, and of course to our extended family in Israel, and of course to the Bibas and Lifshitz families in particular. Invite us really tonight, I think, is important to just take a few moments really to each of us, to ourselves, and to pray what is ever in our hearts. So please just take those few moments for yourselves, and then we'll join together in the Misha Berach on page 371.
Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And in place of the prayer for Israel in time of war that we have been offering since October 7th, tonight we've decided again that sometimes words fail us a little bit in English, a little bit in prose, and sometimes they're best expressed in the language of our people and through music. So Will is going to lead us, or to at least sing for us, Achenu, which I don't believe is in our prayer books. So this is an opportunity, again, just to open your hearts, open your minds, open your ears to the beauty and the power of this particular prayer.
Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, the entire house of Israel, our brothers and sisters, whether they be on dry land or in sea or wherever they are in harm's way. This is what this prayer is about. Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, Hanetunim Betzara, Betzara uvashivia, Haomdim Bein Bayam Uvein Bayabasha. Hamakom Yerachem, Yerachem Aleichem Veyotziem Mitzara, Lirvacha Umeafel Aleora, Umishibud Ligeula Hashta, Baga Uvizman Kariv. Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, Hanetunim Betzara, Betzara uvashivia, Haomdim Bein Bayam Uvein Bayabasha.
And now it's my privilege to invite up our wonderful Hank Oppenheimer, who is going to read a special Misha Berach, a special prayer we're adding for our Repro Shabbat this evening. Again, it can't be found in your books anywhere, but Hank, I know you're going to read it beautifully. And
thank you so much for having me do this. I appreciate it.
Yes,
All right, thank you. All right. So, God of our ancestors, we affirm that you have created each of us in your sacred image, endowed with the inherent right to dignity and autonomy. And so we ask that you guide us towards being a caring and loving community and nation that reveres this dignity in each of us. We affirm that reproductive freedom, the sacred right to own the personhood of one's own body, is a fundamental part of the just society for which we strive in your name. We ask that you endow us with the strength and resolve we need, because the path that lies ahead is challenging, and we all need resilience, strength, and courage. We ask that you protect the most impacted and marginalized among us, because it is they who are most at risk. We do this work in your name because we are the compassionate, loving creations of a compassionate, loving, and just God. It is holy, sacred work. May our country become a place of liberty and justice for all, and may our care for one another include care and respect for each other's right to good and affordable health care, including abortion care, and the right to live safely and securely as we each follow our path of conscience and the God we each do or do not believe in. And together we say, Amen. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for all that you do and for that beautiful reading tonight. So it's my privilege now to invite up a dear friend and a leader in our community, Andy Klausner. And Andy, as you're coming up, I just want to say that, first of all, for connecting us to Liz at the National Council and how hard she has worked with our community. And a lot of that is really because of you bringing her into our sphere, into our world. And when I spent some time with the materials that she sent over, one of the things that really came to me really to the forefront, and I think, Leslie, you mentioned it at the beginning as well, how important it is to hear real stories from real people and real effect, to understand that these aren't just sort of anonymous numbers, these aren't just big projections on a screen, these are real people with real moments. And one of the most important things we can do as a community is to be here and to listen and to respect just how courageous it is to share these stories, which so often are held back. Andy, thank you so much for being here tonight with us, for sharing your stories with us of your family, and for all of us, again, to just love and to respect you for being so willing and so courageous to share that with us tonight. So I want to welcome you up to the bima, make sure that you have your water, and then also to make sure that everybody will hear you. I'll adjust it in case it sounds a little too low. So
Okay. Shabbat Shalom. First, I want to thank you, Rabbi, for sharing the pulpit with me tonight, especially during this time of great sorrow in Israel. So thank you. Okay. I want to start with a little history about reproductive rights before I get to my stories. In 1973, the Supreme Court in Roe v. Wade ruled that reproductive choice for American women was a federally protected constitutional right. But then, in 2022, even though women had been guaranteed this fundamental right of privacy and freedom for over 50 years, a new conservative Supreme Court overturned Roe in the Dobbs decision, ruling that reproductive choice was not a fundamental constitutional right, and it returned the decision on whether to allow abortions to each individual state. The result has been that pregnant women around the country are dying unnecessarily, dying for no reason other than that politicians, not doctors, are deciding when and if women are entitled to receive the full spectrum of reproductive health care, including abortion. As of today, 29 states have passed restrictive abortion laws. That includes 12 states that have passed total abortion bans with no exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother. The passage of Roe v. Wade had lowered the maternal mortality rates by 10%. Now, after overturning Roe, maternal mortality rates have increased by 11% so far in the states with restrictive abortion bans. One of these states, Texas, has seen a 56% increase in pregnancy deaths after it passed its extreme 6-week abortion ban with no exceptions. Many women don't even know that they're pregnant at 6 weeks. Texas also makes it a crime to aid and abet a woman seeking an abortion or crossing state lines to obtain an abortion. Recently, a New York doctor was criminally indicted by a Louisiana court for sending medication abortion to a young woman in Louisiana. Then just last week, this same New York doctor was fined $100,000 by a Texas court for sending abortion pills to a woman in the Dallas area. Extremists are also attempting to revive the 1873 Comstock Act. This outdated Victorian-era law was passed to prevent the use of the U.S. Postal Service to distribute, quote, obscene or lewd material. Until now, it was used mainly to prevent the distribution of porn by mail. But anti-abortionists plan to use the law's vague language now to prohibit the mailing of abortion pills anywhere in the country, even here. The Republican-led Congress is also backing a bill, and I don't mean to be partisan, but it is the Republican-led Congress, is also backing a bill declaring that life begins at conception and that any fertilized embryo has the full rights of a legal person under the 14th Amendment. That would, of course, result in a national ban based upon one religious view that many Americans do not share. It would also require that every miscarriage be investigated as a possible homicide. Doctors could go to jail for performing an abortion that politicians, not doctors, have determined is not medically necessary. It would also make IVF clinics impossible to operate. Because IVF may result in the discarding of some fertilized eggs, restrictive states are calling this abortion and are seeking to ban it, even though it is a pro-life measure that has helped thousands of families suffering from infertility to conceive desperately wanted children. 2 of our own children were conceived by IVF 38 years ago, after years of fruitless attempts to conceive a child on our own. As human beings, and as Jews, we all should be outraged and horrified by these developments. As this week's Parsha explains, the language of the Torah does not consider abortion to be murder. It prioritizes the health and life of the pregnant woman over the fetus. Abortion access is also a matter of religious liberty. As the National Council of Jewish Women declared after the Dobbs decision, the rights of American Jews and other people of faith who believe in access to abortion, who are the majority of people in this country, have been sacrificed to the overwhelming zeal of one small group that has turned the shield of religious freedom into a sword. Okay, I'm now going to share some personal stories with you. As Leslie pointed out, it's really important that we all tell the stories because real-life stories, and as the rabbi said, real-life stories are what touches people's hearts, and it also is the only way to illustrate the harmful, both intended and unintended consequences of banning abortion. Be forewarned, I will be detailed and graphic. 3 years ago, one of our daughters was diagnosed with a malignant stomach tumor, right after the birth of her first child. She had gone into premature labor and was bleeding heavily even after her son was born. She needed pint after pint of blood to stabilize her while her doctors figured out what was wrong. It turned out that the prematurity and bleeding had been caused by the fetus pressing against the tumor, causing it to bleed. The baby, in essence, saved her life because the tumor would not have been discovered until a later date, when her prognosis would probably not have been as good. She gave birth, stayed in the hospital, and 5 days later went into major surgery to remove the tumor, while her husband and new baby were allowed to stay in the hospital room with her. Within several weeks of returning home, she signed up to have her eggs harvested before chemo would render her sterile. Her doctor felt that it was safe for her to wait a month before starting the treatment because the tumor had been removed with clean margins. Then she and her husband started the process to find a surrogate to carry a baby for them. All this took place within a month after giving birth. Imagine the range of emotions our daughter and son-in-law were experiencing. The joy over their new baby versus the fears about cancer, juggling postpartum hormonal changes while taking other hormones to harvest the eggs, breastfeeding, and researching surrogacy options all at the same time. That's how much they wanted another child. Just last year, our daughter and her husband welcomed a beautiful, healthy second son through IVF and a surrogate. And our daughter is in remission, having had clean scans for 3 straight years. Then, last year, believe it or not, when it rains, it pours, another one of our daughters was diagnosed with cancer. This time, it was leukemia. She found out during routine blood tests when she was almost 10 weeks pregnant with her 3rd child. The fetus was healthy and developing normally, but just like that, out of the blue, our daughter was very ill. She and her husband very much wanted this baby, and they tried to delay starting chemo until the fetus might survive her cancer treatments. She was getting sicker and sicker, but still they waited, praying that they could avoid the inevitable. We feared for our daughter's life and worried that she wasn't putting her health first. We also worried about her husband and her young daughters. This decision would affect them as well. Finally, after she became so sick that her doctor warned her that she might suffer a stroke, she had no choice but to terminate the pregnancy and start chemo immediately. I thank God every day that she lived in New York, where abortion is still legal. Otherwise, her choice would have been to forgo chemo until the fetus was viable, putting her life at great risk, or start chemo immediately, only to lose the fetus in utero from abnormalities caused by the chemo. And then if the subsequent miscarriage was incomplete, she would not have been able to get a DNC, which is considered abortion, and would then have risked a sepsis infection that also could have killed her. Our daughter is now doing very well and is almost in complete remission, but because her condition is chronic, she will probably have to stay on chemo medication for life. Our daughter's experiences are not unique. The difference is that unlike our daughters, many women around the country live in states with strict abortion bans now. They are dying because they are not able to access timely medical care like our daughters. These women could be our wives, our sisters, our daughters, our granddaughters. On this Shabbat, let us all honor the women and their loved ones who had to make the heartbreaking decision to terminate a pregnancy. And let us all remember those who died because they weren't given that choice. Let us all reaffirm our Jewish commitment to preserving the privacy and self-determination of women and those who love them. Let us all pray for women to be able to make reproductive decisions in accordance with the dictates of their faith, the needs of their families, the advice of their doctors, and their indelible personal freedom. And let us all speak out in defense of women's rights and declare that women's reproductive rights are human rights. In the wise words of Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Shabbat Shalom.
We just got your hole again. You know, that's exactly. Don't take any chances. Andy, really, on behalf of our entire community, thank you. And thank you, Ron, also for being such a wonderful and supportive husband. And just as a family, know that through all the trials and tribulations, we are with you. And as you spoke about, Andy, you know, these stories are sadly not so uncommon. They are the reality for so many people, and the fear is real. The reality of it is really scary. So these moments, these stories, and your courage, again, to share with all of us when you didn't have to, all right? As you said at the end, okay, the only thing that will ever bring any real change in this world is when we step up. So thank you, Andy, for being a leader, and again, for sharing from your heart tonight. So I'll invite us now to turn to page 586 in our prayer books as we rise in body or spirit. Aleinu l'shabeach, page 586, again, the top of the page.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, v'ateit kidulani yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim, l'ifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 591.
V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Ask those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else at this time may be seated. We think first of those who've passed in our community in recent months. Heather Abrams, David Amanoff, Louise Crandall, Mal Daffner, Stephen Dickman, Judith Berry Emanuel, Harry Fatum, Sharon Lee Goldblatt, Barbara Goldfarb, Harry Heller, David Carlin, Morris Kramer, Barbara Kushner, Ann Lieber, Jeanette Meyerowitz, Jeffrey Miller, Phyllis Cole Rowan, Ronald Seth Tempowski, Randy Wasserman, Alan Stephen Weinstein, Ronald Weller, and Joel Wintner. We also marked the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Vala Amsterdam, Morris Busgang, Molly Davis, Estelle Eagle, Harry Fatum, Muriel Fearman, Lisa Fishman, Ira Flesh, Barry Goodstadt, David Gross, Mildred Hellman, Philip Idone, Joseph Jonas, Saul Klausner, Leo Cohn, Harry Koplovich, Jay Krotman, Harold Abraham Levine, Rose Levine, Robert Lykoff, Gail Ann Lowe Maidman, Harry Matlis, Harry Osofsky, James Pappas, Edna Peak, Lee Harris Pomeroy, Herman Press, Dora Feit Riss, Jenny Loria Rodney, Nettie Rosenstein, Fanny Rosenthal, Marilyn Rudley, Mary Singer, Max Susser, Joseph Tarlow, Leonora Yanovich, and Sigmund Zimmerman. Is anyone else saying Kaddish for anyone tonight, for someone that we did not mention?
Howard Munshine.
And of course, we are thinking of all those lives that have already been lost, unfortunately, for lack of access to health care, and to those, again, that need and deserve that health care. I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 598, and if it's your custom to rise alongside them, you may do so at this time. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. B'gala u'b'zman kari v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mebarach le'alam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei d'kudsha brichu. Le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru,
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. Again, Shabbat shalom to everyone. Heavy Shabbat, and just a reminder again, in case anybody thinks that we forgot to say their names, we don't say Kaddish for people who have not yet been buried or found their final resting place. So for those lives that we now know were lost and again brought back to Israel, to the Bibas family and to the Lifshitz family, we're not yet in a position to offer the mourners Kaddish, but certainly we are with them tonight, and we are with them, as I said in our letter I sent out earlier, every step of the way in every way that we can. So again, I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, even with all of that heaviness. My gratitude again for being part of a community with so many leaders, so many wonderful people who helped to participate tonight. And so I want to thank Leslie, certainly, and Alicia as well, and Hank, and of course to Andy, and to all the members of our Social Justice Committee for helping us to connect again to this really very powerful Shabbat happening all over the country tonight. And it's just the tip of the iceberg, as it were, as Andy alluded to. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of ways to get involved. Those that might be interested in getting more involved or learning more about the National Council, you could certainly find Andy next door at the ONEG, or to contact us during the week, and we'll certainly make sure that we can get everybody involved who'd like to be involved. And we very much plan and expect that this will now become a part of our yearly experience here at the temple every year for Parshat Mishpatim. And this beginning, we hope will grow into other meaningful both opportunities for learning and engagement, but also for ultimately action and change. So again, thank you to everybody for being here tonight, and thank you to our leaders, and thank you to our Social Justice Committee as a whole for all the work that you ultimately do. And we want to invite everyone, of course, to join us next door as soon as we're finished with our service tonight for our expanded Oneg Shabbat, sponsored by our Board of Directors. And we hope very much that you'll take a chance to be in community with each other, especially on a night like this, for many, many different reasons. And again, please join us as soon as the service is done next door. Also a reminder that our services begin tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, followed by Kiddush lunch and Torah study as well. Also a reminder of our ongoing virtual lay-led Sunday morning minyan that happens on Zoom at 9:30 every Sunday. Again, this in response to the war in Israel, welcoming to all to join once or every time. We also want to remind everyone that this Tuesday, February 25th, from 6 to 7:30, is the next in Rabbi Alan Levin's bereavement group meetings. So if you're interested in potentially joining that group, please contact Rabbi Levin directly. And if you don't know how to do that, please let our office know, and we'll make that connection this week. Also, just a few things to note coming up in March. Believe it or not, it's already time for Purim. So we will celebrate a little bit ahead of the holiday and have our annual Purim Carnival for all ages. Okay, certainly is a certain skew to our younger people, but you know, I think everybody has a great time when we're all together here at the temple. And of course, we'll feed you, and we'll have costumes and all that great stuff. And then for our Megillah reading, Thursday, March 14th at 6 o'clock. And unless I'm mistaken, we have Will with us.
I am going to be here on Purim.
This is the most,
Yeah.
I believe in 10 years, this might be the first time that our student cantor has ever been able to be here for Purim. So,
calendar
not to put
works
any
out.
pressure on you whatsoever, but it's just it's great, and we'll all wonder what will Will dress as for Purim.
And
We
you'll have
don't.
to
We
come
don't
and
know.
see.
We don't. We certainly don't know. And Will, would you remind us again when your practicum is? I know it's coming
It
up.
was February 12th.
We missed it.
Yes, it already happened.
How was it? Is there
It
a
was
record?
great. It is recorded.
And there is a recording, so
There
you'll
is a
send us that
recording.
recording
Yes,
so we
yes,
can
yes.
send it
Yes,
out.
of course.
Mazal tov about
Thank
finishing
you.
that again major milestone certainly, and also a reminder that next Friday night, as we're continuing to try to build up our family Shabbat experience here for all ages, we'll have a chance to do that again next week, and we'll have a really good time. And I think we're going to change a few things from last time, but we're going to have a great time. Well, right? We're going to do great.
Always a great time.
Always a great time, for sure. So tonight, to close our service, we have a request. We had a request.
Just one more announcement.
Yes,
One more
please,
announcement.
please.
On
Sunday, March 23rd
at 2 p.m.,
at 2 p.m.
the Social Justice Committee is sponsoring the screening of a civil rights film and virtual Q&A with the director. The movie is entitled Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round, and you can read about it. And thank you to the Rieger and Oppenheimer families for sponsoring this event.
That's fabulous. And then remind me again, Andy, the date and time is now
Sunday, March 23rd
Saturday,
at 2 p.m.
Sunday, March 23rd at 2 p.m. here at the temple.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for that.
And to close today, we're going to turn to page 649 with Tfilat HaDerech on the top of the page. May we be blessed as we go on our way. May we be guided in peace. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. May we be sheltered by the wings of peace. May we be kept in safety and love. May grace and compassion find their way to every soul. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
We rise for Kiddush on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam bohorei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim Kivanu v'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I think we were synchronized on
We were
that. That
very
was very
synchronized,
We've been working together for a while. Shabbat shalom, everyone.